Welcome to Naka Tales. Don't forget to subscribe. The roar of the airplane's engines faded as I pressed my forehead against the window, watching Bangkok's glittering metropolis blur beneath the early dawn. 3 months into dating my childhood sweetheart back in Colorado, I jetted halfway around the globe with 4 of my closest friends, eager for sun, street food, and cheap spirits. We'd all needed the escape, work stress, relationship jitters, anything to break the routine. But I never imagined I'd find something more complicated. I should have been texting home, sending my girlfriend pictures of rooftop cocktails and revered temples, but my phone stayed buried in my pocket. When we arrived at our first night out in a neon-lit L-shaped bar amid the city's labyrinth of swa, I noticed her standing alone at the counter. A goddess in a scarlet cheongsam, ebony hair tumbling past her shoulders, she turned, smiled, and that instant, I was hers. Her name was Nok, which I later learned meant bird in Thai, and she flew into my life like a bright firework. We talked. We laughed. We drank hand-rolled cigarettes and sweet whiskey as if time itself were on hiatus. The air crackled around us. Every brush of her hand against mine sent a zing through my veins. I told her jokes. She bared that dazzling smile. When I left to find my friends, Nok caught my arm, leaned in close, and whispered, "Stay with me. Tonight is ours." I didn't resist. How we ended up back in her apartment is a blur of silk sheets and clinking ice. She poured us stronger drinks, her eyes smoldering in the moonlight. One thing led to another. I remember the taste of jasmine in the air, her perfume stinging my nose, and then, darkness. I woke on a rumpled mattress in the faint glow of early morning. Nok was gone. My head pounded, heart hammering. In the half-light, I saw my clothes scattered on the floor, the faint stain of lipstick on my collar. My phone read 3 missed calls, from my buddy Matt, who'd been worried I'd vanished into Bangkok's underbelly. I dressed, slipped into the hallway, and stumbled out before rational thought could catch up to my guilt. I never called Nok again. I flew home the next day, landed in Denver, dove back into work and routine. I justified my one-night lapse to myself. After all, I hardly remembered it, and with 3,000 miles between us, what did it matter? I returned to my girlfriend, now my fiancée, building our life, a cozy apartment, dinner parties, hiking weekends. I never suspected that across the ocean, a seed had been planted. Surprise! I shouted as my friends crowded around me, popping champagne beneath a cascade of confetti. It was my wedding day. 3 years after that ill-advised holiday fling, I finally married the love of my life, my rock, my North Star. She looked ethereal in ivory lace, eyes alight with joy. The night was a blur of vows, toasts, and dancing under strings of twinkling lights. Fast forward another week. My wife and I, passports in hand, boarded an Emirates flight to Dubai. We'd planned a whirlwind honeymoon, the desert dunes of the UAE, the fjords of Norway, and a final, nostalgic stop in Thailand. Just to tie up loose ends, she'd joked. In Dubai, we sipped karak tea under starry skies. In Oslo, we marveled at trolls carved into mountain stone. Every step felt like a dream. But when our plane touched down in Bangkok, history whispered at my spine. The humidity clung to us as we rolled our bags through Suvarnabhumi Airport. My wife, radiant in her honeymoon glow, chatted excitedly about revisiting the bar district, tasting street food mushrooms, and snapping sunrise photos by the river. I forced a smile, my chest tightening each time we passed that gleaming L-shaped bar where Nok and I had first met. One evening, we wandered into a laid-back beer garden with rickety wooden tables. Lanterns dripped soft light over plastic chairs. My wife ordered Singha. I hesitated before joining her, my gaze straying. And then I saw her, standing by the bar, legs crossed, hair in a careless knot, bright eyes scanning the crowd. It took me a heartbeat to place her. Nok, now older, more poised, but unmistakably the woman who'd stolen that night from me. "Hey," my breath caught. I nudged my wife's arm. "Do you know that woman over there?" My wife glanced over, pursing her lips. "No," she frowned. "Do you?" I swallowed. My feet moved before my mind cleared. I excused myself, leaving my wife blinking under the lantern glow, and pushed through the tables until I stood face to face with a wave of déjà vu. Knock looked up, her smile faltered, recognition blooming in her dark eyes. "Hello," I croaked. She blinked, then wrapped me in a hug. "It's been a long time." I raised her hand. There, slipping from the red polish, was a tiny gold band. "A wedding ring?" "I'm married," I said, the words tasting like ash. She nodded. "I know." Her eyes flickered to the toddler by her side, a chubby-cheeked boy with a mop of raven hair, cupped in her arms. He waved shyly, echoes of my own smile. At first I thought it was a trick of the light. Maybe it wasn't him, my phantom memory playing cruel games. But the boy's eyes, dark pools identical to Knock's, locked with mine. My breath hitched. I'm sorry," I stammered. "I didn't." Knock's lips trembled. "You don't remember, do you?" The world spun. I swallowed bile. "Remember what?" She released a shaky laugh. "That night, 3 years ago, we did more than talk." Her hand brushed the boy's cheek. "Here's yours." Silence swallowed us. The bar's chatter and drums faded. My heart raged in my ears. I blinked, vision blurring. My wife's voice called my name, distant and foreign. I turned. Her face was ashen, confusion cracking into betrayal. My knees buckled. I sank onto a plastic chair, nails digging into my palms. A decade of trust, a lifetime of vows, shattered in that moment. 3 days later, we were back in Colorado. Our home, once a sanctuary, felt like a cage. My wife paced the living room, phone clenched in her fist, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I trusted you," she whispered. "You lied to me." I could only stare, guilt a lead weight. I forgot. I managed. I blacked out. I never meant. "Blackouts," she spat, voice cracking. "That's your excuse? You didn't just black out, you betrayed me." Wordlessly, I requested a DNA test. My hands shook handing the kit to Knock via a borrowed friend. I knew what the result would say. A week later, I sat alone in our sterile bathroom, thumb hovering over the envelope the lab had sent. I slid my finger beneath the seal and pulled the paper free. Man 1, match. 99.98%. My vision swirled. I stumbled to the bed, sank to my knees, pressing my forehead into the mattress. My wife opened the door. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but she moved with resolve. She sat beside me, wrapping her arms around my shaking shoulders. "I believe you didn't mean this," she whispered. "But it happened. And we have to figure out what happens next." For weeks, we tried therapy. We spoke in fractured segments, words hunting for clarity. She told me of her sleepless nights, the ache of doubt. I confessed the shame that weighed on my soul, the guilt that burned hotter than any desert sun I'd ever known. But nothing could mend the hole inside her trust. Nothing could erase the photograph of her husband, her partner, my friend, with someone else's child. And then the twist nobody saw coming. 6 months after our return, we received word from Thailand. Nok had died in a motorcycle accident outside Chiang Mai. The world seemed to implode. She was only 26, vibrant, laughing, the woman who'd carried my son. The news crept like frost across my bones. I wept alone, collapsing onto the hardwood floor, my mind replaying every stolen glance, every whispered yom rak I'd never learned, "I love you" in Thai. Her sister emailed. The boy was alone, grandmother too old and frail to care for him in rural villages. The Thai courts had declared him an orphan until a foreign guardian stepped forward. My phone trembled in my hand. I thought of my wife, nursing our grief over his betrayal. I thought of the empty crib we'd bought months ago, now collecting dust. But when I learned that the child's only hope was me, a new purpose emerged. The courts in Chiang Mai required DNA confirmation. Done. They needed a guardian willing to commit. I looked at my wife in the living room. Her face was a map of sorrow, the lines deeper than any tropical wrinkle. She stared at the unopened adoption papers on the coffee table, heart pounding. I rose from the couch. "He's innocent," I said softly. "He deserves a chance at life. If we can save him, we must." She swallowed. For a heartbeat, I thought she'd refuse. Then her tears spilled over, and she reached for my hand. "Okay," she whispered. "We'll do it together." So we flew back to Thailand, two broken souls in grief, carrying a silent promise for a third. We arrived in the humid dusk to find a boy of 3, standing timidly in an orange robe at the edge of a temple courtyard. The moment he saw us, he took a stumbling step forward, arms outstretched. "Papa," he whispered, the single syllable wrenching my heart. I knelt on the dusty stone, scooping him into my arms. He smelled of jasmine and incense. My wife wrapped her arms around both of us, and I cried for the son I never knew, and for the wife who forgave a betrayal I never meant. There, in the golden glow of lanterns, we formed a new family, one stitched together by guilt, forgiveness, and a child whose only crime was the accident of his birth. Years later, our home in Denver is filled with laughter again. The boy, Kay, we named him, after Knock, runs through autumn leaves, his small feet echoing on the hardwood floors. My wife and I have learned the true meaning of love, not the infatuation that led me astray in Bangkok, but the steadfast devotion that carried us back to each other and beyond. Don't forget to subscribe if you believe in second chances, in love's capacity to heal even the deepest wounds, and in the strange, sometimes beautiful ways life can twist and turn. Because this was one of the hottest, rockiest journeys we've ever told here on Naka Tales, a tale of sun-soaked temptation, a forgotten promise, a child born of mistake, and a final act of redemption. Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and remember, sometimes the greatest acts of love are the ones we never planned.